Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Daily Sports Report podcast. As always, I am your host, Ian Pfaffenberger, staff writer for the North Texas Daily. And for this episode, I'm joined by the senior sports writer for the North Texas Daily, Haylie Stum.
Yeah, hi, Ian. I'm very grateful to be here. I know I was giving you some flack about me not being the first person on the episode.
It's not my fault. Not my fault.
But yeah, as you said, I'm the senior sports writer for the NT Daily, and my unofficial title is first lieutenant to our sports editor, Justin Naw. So shout out Mr. Naw if you're watching. And then I kind of just pick up some Mr. Naw, yeah. And I kind of just pick up some side quests here and there, and I guess this is one of them. So yeah, excited to be here.
It's been super fun. We've been trying to work in all these daily people. Hope you guys have been watching the last couple episodes. It's been really fun. This episode again, we're going to talk about some ball. It's been going on the past week of UNT sports. Of course, UNT football had their historical win against South Alabama, 5-0 for the first time since 1959. We'll get into that first. Volleyball went 1-1 in their conference opening homestand over this last week. They lost to Charlotte on Thursday and then won against UAB on Sunday. We'll get into that second. Women's soccer, unfortunate continued trend of bad luck for them. They lost both of their home games, conference home games, over this home stretch. We're shut out on Sunday. We have some more intel from Haylie here, just of kind of how Coach Headland views it, how some of their captains view it, and maybe just what it might look for them going forward this season. And then women's and men's basketball segment I'm excited about. Women's and men's basketball both released their schedules. So we're going to just kind of be discussing that, some notable games, what we think that might look like. And yeah, we'll get into it. All right, going into football, they won kind of one of the duller games they played this year. Haylie was at the game, so she's gonna have a lot of knowledge of kind of what it looked like. Kind of one of the duller games they more played this year. Not as flashy on the offensive end, but still came out with a 36-22 win. Just Haylie, kind of what were you seeing in that game as you're watching from the press box?
It's easy to point out all the negatives because obviously you look at the line going into that game. It was double digits in favor of North Texas. Not a lot of people showed up for the game. The last time the attendance was that low was 2023 against Temple. Also to bring up, that was an 11 a.m. game. And right now on our Facebook page on NT Daily, the game recap has over 80 comments with all these people saying, why aren't people here? Why aren't people here? Well, apparently North Texas fans don't want to get up in the morning and go catch the game. And the morning slate had a little bit of trouble for the North Texas offense. They were not great on third downs. They had more 3-and-outs than they've had this entire year. South Alabama really was probably more of a gritty team than people realize. I know they were 1-3 coming into this game, but they played some two tough opponents that reflected 2 losses on their record. South Alabama did a really good job of taking away their internal run game, which hasn't really been a bright spot for North Texas already. They played some deep zones. They changed up their fronts a lot, and Coach Morris and Drew Mestemaker both came out and said, we were not prepared for what South Alabama showed us. On the flip side of that, they get to see a different dimension of a defense that maybe they didn't know how to navigate, which is super crucial heading into conference play, and we're playing different kinds of opponents. So the negatives can be seen as a positive in a way. Definitely had all the makings for a trap game, like you said, but ultimately a win. They won it by 14 points, so it still goes down as a W in the win column.
Yes, exactly.
But I would say the biggest storyline of that game was Caleb Hawkins.
Yes, Caleb Hawkins is our athlete of the week once again. Someone's got to stop this kid. Back-to-back weeks in a row, he's been our athlete of the week. Led the team in rushing and receiving yards. He had 16 carries for 140 rushing yards and 2 receptions for 78 receiving yards. He had that highlight 68-yard touchdown pass he caught on a screen in the third quarter. He broke multiple tackles, like a crap ton of tackles. He seems like he breaks 4 tackles every single play. He is something special. And I think once you kind of moved on past that Mestemaker is a star freshman guy. He's solidified himself now. Caleb Hawkins is starting to solidify himself, and they are proving to be one of the best freshman duos kind of in the country.
I'm glad you brought that up because all the hype nationally, and because North Texas really is getting media attention nationally, has been Drew Mestemaker. And Caleb kind of got a taste of what Drew's kind of been getting after the Army game. And now I think we're going to kind of see the narrative flip. Not that Drew is doing worse or something like that.
Yes, it's more so the fact he's solidified himself. It's less of he's the star. He never started a game since 9th grade. You've all heard the story. and like how long can he keep this up? It's now he is that guy. Like he's consistent. He will lead this team, and he's very consistent throughout the week. So that's kind of how he solidified himself now.
Yeah, this kid from Shawnee, Oklahoma is a dog.
Dude.
Capital D. I mean, he just breaks any kind of tackle you can think of. He just keeps his legs churning. I think an important thing to bring up, because you can go through his physical abilities. They said he was physically fit enough to start at the beginning of the season. You can go through the stats. I mean, he's now the current national leader in freshman rushing touchdowns. But I think the most important thing is Coach Eric Morris brought up in the press conference after South Alabama. We asked him, how crucial is adding Caleb Hawkins? He's arriving on the scene in a really good time for, especially going into next week, which is a whole other topic in itself.
Yes.
And said, how important is he now that we're getting into the heat of this season? And he goes, well, when I came home from Army, I always talk to my 10-year-old son, Jack, about the game and his thoughts. And Jack tells Coach Morris, so how many carries did Caleb have? And Coach Morris goes, oh, he had 13. And his son goes, well, you should probably hand him the ball more than 13
times. His son
times.
was also like, how many touchdowns did he have?
Yeah.
And like 4. And he's like, yeah, you should probably give it to him. Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
And I think there's a question looming right now is Caleb Hawkins, RB1? I don't think that this offense has really thrived off declaring this is wide receiver 1. This is running back 1. So I think that's a tough conversation. Go look at the depth chart. Look at how there are 4 guys listed on the running back position, all in bold, and it just says or. So I don't think they're just going to come out and be, oh, this is RB1. But Caleb Hawkins, definitely with his performance, especially against South Alabama, has emerged as kind of maybe that go-to guy in tough situations in terms of carrying the ball.
Yes, and I was kind of thinking about this. Dare I say on some of these runs, he reminds me of like Prime Beast mode. Just the way.
For sure.
Yeah, or the way he just shakes off so many tackles. And yeah, to your point about also is he going to be RB1? That's not the identity of this team, right? You still have Mackenzie McGill, who still plays at an incredibly high level. You had I think over 100 yards not this last game, but against Army. And then, of course, the North Texas offense is designed around just spreading the ball out. They've completed a pass to 8 or more different receivers in like 20 straight games. So, to Haylie's point, that's not the identity of this team. They spread the ball out and they just get the ball into the hands of their playmakers, no matter who it is that week. And it's been Caleb Hawkins recently. You might see Mackenzie McGill with the ball again. But, it's been very, very special for this team so far, very special for this offense. And something I was kind of thinking about, this has been a generational season for me. I was thinking about maybe I shouldn't use that word because that's a very heavy word that people tend to just throw around now. But it has been generational. They haven't had a season like this since 1959, back when the school was called North Texas State College and Alaska and Hawaii became U.S. states. I mean, that is how long it's been since the Mean Green fans have seen this type of season, and this type of success has been 1959. And again, kind of going, we're kind of backtracking, but going back to the fan attendance, it's a little unfortunate that they haven't been able to bring as many people out, especially for a game where they set that record. But coming up with this USF game, we'll cover that in next week's episode a little more extensively. I think that'll probably be the game to change things around.
Oh, for sure, and that's what I was going to bring up is this team is. I would totally agree with you. It's a generational team for this program. On the flip side of that, since it is a generational team for this program, have they really built a fan base that really wants to wake up at 7 a.m. to go watch them play South Alabama?
Exactly.
No, because the team hasn't given them an opportunity or a reason to really get excited to go watch that game. However, I think with their start, 5-0 start, there was a lot of back and forth on, well, this happened in 1977. No, there was a forfeit against Mississippi State that they'd originally lost, so everyone cool your pants.
Even still, I mean, it's not this century you haven't had a start this good.
Of course, yeah. And I think now that we've got this solidified, they've got a good resume win against Army, which is now dwindling
unfortunately.
in value, unfortunately. Now that we're coming into possibly having an AP rank on the line, I really think people are going to turn up, especially with it being a night game and Honestly, some people don't want to lose their Saturday. Some people aren't sickos like us that want to spend their entire Saturday watching college football. So I think it's a making for a really good game. I wish they would have marketed this game as the sellout
Yeah.
DATQ game because I
I,
think
I just I just don't think they really expected it like to
no.
start this good.
Yeah.
Last year it was the game against Wyoming. It's kind of always come in the third week, and of course the game against Washington State is the most kind of high profile game you have. Just the team against the I guess a former power conference team. I guess they will be again, but right now they're not. Whatever. The biggest profile team. So yes, but yeah, just to your point, I don't think they were expecting necessarily to be 5-0 at this point, but they are trying their best to market it now. They have I don't know if you've seen they have that wear black to the game. Those black jerseys will probably be worn by UNT. Always sleek. I always love black jerseys that teams roll out. So they've had a bunch of other stuff happen. They had a teacher donate 5,000 for ticket causes. They've had a lot of marketing towards that, and then they still have a whole week to do it. So they're definitely very much pushing to get those fans out there.
No, yeah, and there's people out there that I think are I guess what's most exciting to me as a Gen Zer is getting to see TikTok edits of North Texas football.
Yes.
That has been wonderful. 'Cause it's like, wow, people really are going to take the time to break down Mean Green film. And I think there's more hype circulating around them, especially with the college football playoff expansion, right? There is a true path to getting that spot.
Exactly.
And the more and more we build this resume, the more and more people get excited because there's actually something to be excited for.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of going back to your point just about how, the fan base hasn't been able to be built up. That's just come with kind of being a mid-major, and this is a conversation for a whole other day. We could go on for.
We could do like an entire episode about this topic.
Yeah, just with the transfer portal and with NIL and that and all that stuff. It is hard to get fans to really care about, especially at a school like UNT, where we're kind of known more for media arts and for fine arts, not necessarily a sports school. But yeah, with the college football playoff expansion, with the success that mid majors, especially the American, have had, I think maybe not this year, but in future years, you'll see the Americans kind of start to get more media fame, and you'll probably see more fans out there just on average as the years go on.
And just within the conference, and again, I'm going to very briefly touch on this topic because if you ever want to do a special edition episode of this,
we could.
I would
we
talk
might.
about this for
We
2
might.
hours. North Texas is the second lowest in terms of revenue sharing for their players in the American Conference.
Wow.
So not only are they dealing with possibly being one of the best mid-majors, they're in a really tough conference in terms of competing with money. Because when you have these mid-majors, more of their money is actually going to come from the student fees instead of the actual revenue that's coming in from ticket sales, which is also another topic that's not even sports. It's
business.
Yeah, what the heck? So put me in pads. I guess I'd pay for a spot on the team.
Yeah, give me a spot on the team. I want to be on the sidelines at least.
Of course. And that's another thing about getting this attendance up is the more people we can put in seats, the more people we can keep on this
Exactly,
roster.
yes. Yeah, we'll try to shift on from that. Of course, we can do a 2-hour episode on all that stuff. But yes, get out to that game next week. Touching on going back to this run game, Caleb Hawkins' success, the offensive line is something we haven't really touched on this podcast yet. They have been incredibly successful to start the year. They have an 89.3 PFF pass grade, which is 4th in the NCAA. They have an 85.9 run grade, which is 19th. And the team is tied 3rd nationally for rushing touchdowns, tied 1st nationally for red zone rushing. So just an incredibly good start for this offensive line. Every time I feel like I see Mestamaker drop back, I really don't see him get pressured all that often. I don't really see him scrambling for his life out there. And, of course, they're making all these lanes for these running backs. I mean, the yards per carry is at like 5 for the year. Caleb Hawkins has been going crazy. Mackenzie McGillis had a good start to the year. And I think a lot of that's come on having a lot more experience. Last year, this offensive line had a ton of injuries. Obviously, you didn't have Gabe Blair. He's back this year. And they just kept rotating guys in and out last year. It just seemed like they couldn't really get anything going. This year, they've had a lot of consistency. The only injury they've really had was their senior starting right tackle, Jim Toa Badegwu, was out for, I think, the game against Western Michigan. But other than that, they've been very healthy. They They have 3 seniors with Gabe Blair, of course. He's local Dent legend. Haylie did a story on him like a couple weeks ago. Definitely go check that out if you can. He's earned a first-team all-conference selection. He's just very solid over there at the left guard position. Tay Yonta is like a 5th or 6th year senior. I think he's been around for a long time. And then Jim Toe, of course, he transferred here from Kent State. And then you have guys like Johnny Dickinson, who has 3 seasons of experience, and then left tackle Braden Nelson. He's the youngest on the team, but he earned an all-freshman PFF nod from last year. He's been with UNT for both years of his college career. So this offensive line's been performing very well, needless to say.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I feel like they've kind of been the unsung heroes.
They
of
always
this team.
are. Offensive lines always are.
Of
I love
course, right?
offensive lines. And being like a Dallas Cowboys, I'm kind of shifting away from UNT. Being a Dallas Cowboys fan, when the offensive lines have been good last year, I just, you love having those guys because they are the foundation of an offense. It doesn't run if they can't block for anything.
No, and I mean, you're not going to have your Caleb Hawkins or your Drew Best-to-Maker making national attention without them, right? Because if they don't have any time to be able to make those great decisions, then who are they,
Exactly.
right? And I think Gabe Blair is a huge piece of that. Not necessarily, well, I shouldn't say not necessarily. Not just from a play standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint. The guy, I don't know if anyone's ever met Gabe Blair. This guy does not speak much. There's not a lot of words that you're going to pry out of him. But it's almost like his superpower because when he speaks up, everyone just listens. And his leadership comes from being an example and being the mature guy. He's been there forever, which is not common when we're talking about mid-majors in college football right now. So
he entered the transfer portal this last offseason, but he decided to come back, which is huge.
yeah, so he was trying to find money for his kid, obviously, and North Texas left the door open for him, and it was something he said he was extremely grateful for. And in hindsight, he realizes that staying here was the right move because he's able to stay close to his family. He's a Denton native, and get to play in front of his son and his now fiance. So just him being able to anchor this offensive line has been a big deal. They didn't have him last year, and I think you could see the difference. The run game was not strong by any means.
Yeah.
Mackenzie McGill came back as the leading with the leading amount of rushing touchdowns from the American. However, that was like the only bright spot in terms of that unit. They just weren't able to run the ball and weren't very good in the red zone. So I think going back to my point, having someone that's anchoring that line, that's kind of where all of this offensive mayhem has started for Morris's squad.
Yeah, and a shout out to the offensive line coach, Cody Krill. Fun fact, he coached with Eric Morris at the University of the Incarnate Word back when he was there as the offensive coordinator. So he's new this year, has come in and done just a fantastic job. Wanted to give a shout out to the offensive line. I'm an offensive line guy. Played offensive line in middle school myself. Loved it. But yes, they've been doing fantastic. And then kind of our last few points on the game. We kind of going back to what you were saying. It could have been a trap game. This team could have fallen prone to, like you said, South Alabama's record does not reflect how they are as a team. They played Auburn, they played Tulane, and then they played us.
They played us hard.
They did.
They played us hard.
Their passing defense is good. They were definitely showing it. They gave our offense some trouble. So this, I guess, less to the point of, it could have been a trap game, but UNT showed resiliency even fighting through it. And like you said, Mestemaker and Morris, we weren't prepared for what they're doing, but we still came out with a 14-point win, which, it just shows, I think, kind of the change this team has this year, especially on both sides of the ball, and just being resilient.
Yeah, I really, honestly, which the North Texas faithful may not be too happy with me when I say this, but I really think it was a needed game. I think it's easy. I'm not saying that North Texas was doing this. I think it's easy to get a big head when you've got all these people hyping you up with, we're just dominating people. I think a game with this kind of resiliency and kind of realizing, kind of have some weak spots. We weren't prepared for this kind of defensive front, or South Alabama came out and scored in the first drive, and the defense kind of got caught on their heels. And Coach Morris said that. He said South Alabama kind of set the tone for the beginning of the game. But, however, North Texas' ability to kind of take the tempo away from them proves the resiliency that you were referring to. And I think it's a trait that I'm glad that we saw, especially when we're heading into an opponent that's going to pose some challenges for us.
Hopefully they'll take that resiliency going into USF. That game's next week. We'll have more on that in our next episode next week on our podcast. That's it for football. We're going into volleyball now. They got swept by Charlotte on Thursday, unfortunately, but then they won in four sets against UAB on Sunday, so went 1-1 at home over this last week. It was the first time, for people who keep up with UNT volleyball a lot, that was the first time they've lost to Charlotte since 2015. So definitely kind of a hard pill to swallow there. That's like the Cowboys losing to the Giants at this point. They're 9-3 all time against Charlotte, but that's not. I don't think that loss, especially being swept, it's definitely not something to hang your head over, because Charlotte also has burst onto the scene this season. They were, like UNT, picked to finish second to last in the conference. They've really come on. Senior Kristen Birmingham has been leading them on. She leads the American in points currently in volleyball. So they've really come on. They came out hard and strong. So I don't really think it's something for volleyball to hang their head over.
No, to actually compare it to football, which is what the exact sport we just finished talking about, it's kind of like if Army said, man, we just lost to North Texas. Well, North Texas is a completely different team than what they've been historically. So, yeah, to your point, the loss to Charlotte wasn't necessarily something that should put warning signs in fans' eyes just because they've maybe been in the lower tier of the conference historically. It's a completely different team. And I remember in the preseason press conference when we got availability with Coach Fleming, he told us, he said, hey, this is the first time I'm a Division I head coach. I don't know anything about this American Conference. The American Conference is really good for volleyball as well, probably across all sports. I'm not trying to sound biased or anything.
It was tough. It was tough last year when you would go to those games. They play hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said it's going to have to be an adjustment on a day-to-day basis. We don't really know what we're dealing with until we play that first opponent, and I think that's what they got a taste of when they played Charlotte. He said he's got to lean on his assistant coaches to be able to gauge, can this team compete against these big girls in the American? And they said, yeah, I think we've got the talent to kind of bully some people around. And I think they kind of did against Charlotte. I think they just didn't really know what they were up against.
They probably just got caught off guard. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think we saw them rebound against UAB on Sunday. So I don't think the loss is something to be concerned with. And also, look at the record that they've posted.
Yeah, they've already surpassed their win total from last season. UNT has. They're 11-3 on the season. They were 10-18 last season, so already a fantastic start. Yeah, going back to your point against big girls, not just physically but in age. A lot of these American teams have a lot of older players. Charlotte, for example, they had 7 seniors and graduate players. Kristen Birmingham being one of them. So they have a lot of experience on these rosters, not just Charlotte, but a lot of them. And UNT doesn't. They have 12 underclassmen. On a roster of 16, most of their starting lineup is either sophomores or freshmen, beside Loredana Fungi, who will get into her in a minute. She had a great weekend. She's a junior, so not really any seniors besides Setter, Alexa Washington, really getting a lot of sets played on this team. So the fact they, getting I guess surprised by Charlotte, for lack of a better term, is not, not something to be surprised about, because they are young, and going into conference play, the intensity just ramps up a lot more. But yeah, like you said, they rebounded against UAB. Fungi, we'll get into her. She won American Defensive Player of the Week for her performance at UAB. She finished with 8 total blocks and averaged 1.86 blocks per set. And she's currently second in the American in blocks and blocks per set. And you know what I was thinking about when I saw the news that happened? I was like, I could have predicted at the start of the season, hey, a player to watch out for, Loredana Fungi. I know saying that now, obviously, oh, he's a liar. But no, I know. When she came onto the scene last year, and kind of at the end of the season when the team was dwindling, she plays with a lot of ferocity. She plays with a lot of strength, and the fact she can get both blocks and kills, huge for this team.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the age thing in terms of Charlotte, because Charlotte was really aggressive offensively. And I think that is what is important about having veterans on your team, is they're not scared to take those shots, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of what North Texas, on the flip end of that, did not do good at, because you've got people that haven't really been in that situation. They're missing also Ryan Vick on their blocking unit, and then they were able to win the game against UAB. So that's also another good point. UNT was held to its lowest hitting mark on the season in that game as well. And I think we're kind of seeing the benefits of having girls stay on your team, learn your system, feel comfortable under a coach. And I think UNT has done a great job of transitioning into a new Fleming era. But I do think that the Charlotte game kind of exposed maybe that they need to trust in that, and I think they did turn it on when they played UAB.
Yes. Yeah, the UAB game, we'll get into that now. Lily Croshaw, we haven't really mentioned her on the podcast yet. We've been talking a lot about Reagan Bedell and Janiah Jackson, been great in their own right, but she's tied for second on the team with kills now. She led the game against UAB with 14. Bedell and Fungi both finished with 10. And then a note we've kind of also talked about, this team really wanted to ramp up their service aces this year. They had 8 in this game. 5 of them came in the fourth set, which ended the game, which they won. And they are currently 3rd in the conference in service aces. So the offense really stepped back up this UAB game, kind of did what they've been doing all season. The service aces came in. You have your outside hitters, Bedell, Croshaw, and Fungi getting those kills for you. So yeah, the very much locked in a lot better against UAB.
Yeah, and it's been cool to see how much Fleming has stayed true to his word. He said at the beginning of the season, hey, it starts when you serve the ball. At college, that's what sets the tone for the set and for the game. And my focus is going to be serving the ball efficiently. So it's nice to see that reflected in the numbers. I also remember a very vivid point, and he said, we're picked to finish second to last in the American, and hold me to that. We will not finish second to last. That is like burned in my head. Right. And I'm seeing that reflected across all these numbers in terms of the offensive scheme that he wanted to run. And he was very upfront about them losing the kind of big hitters that they did last year. And he said, we're going to transition our offense in a way to where you're not going to see that that's a hole. We're going to use maybe our other stronger positions in order to cover that up and maybe change the strength of this team. And they have, if you look at all these numbers, especially the service aces that you brought up, and kind of makes me feel like he's going to stay true to his word on that other quote that says, hey, we are not going to finish second to last in
Definitely
the American.
not.
So a lot of moving and shaking going around in volleyball.
Yeah, and like you said, talking about kind of using those other positions to propel the team outside of the offense, their middle blockers really stepping up. And then, like we also mentioned, Ryan Vick still not back. Arguably coming into this season, this is kind of a broken record at this point, the biggest part of this team coming into this season on paper, and she still hasn't played. We didn't really get an injury update on her kind of going into these slated games, but she still didn't play. So Fleming said she'd be back soon, but that was like 3 weeks ago. And
Coach speak.
Yes, exactly. We always know what soon means. It never means soon. But I guess it's almost a blessing in disguise, because the fact they are doing this and are able to win good conference games without Vic means, this team's buying in, and they have people that can step up, and when they get Vic back, they're only going to be all the more better.
Yeah, and I think Fungi's kind of the orchestrator of all that. Not only was she the American Defensive Player of the Week, but she was also the MVP of their final tournament.
Yes.
In college sports, when you've got your volleyball, your basketball, softball, baseball, obviously not baseball here, but tournaments expose a lot about your team, because you're playing a lot of games back to back. It's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. That's kind of your preparation for when you're in the middle of conference and you're banged up. You've got to use different players and rotations. That's kind of where we see tournaments play a huge role in a team's season. And Fungi just straight up dominated every single team they played over there in Stephenville at Tarleton State. And she continued to prove that when conference started, and it makes me excited, like you said, because then Vic is going to kind of be the 1-2 punch. She was the only player picked to be on that preseason All-American conference team. So we know what she can do, especially that was in her based off of her freshman season. Imagine what she can do in her sophomore year.
On a freshman season where the middle blocker position specifically had a lot of seniors, and she was still able to break out.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of good things to look forward to if I'm a UNT volleyball fan, especially when we can get Vic back soon.
Yes. Yeah, great season for volleyball so far. If you're not a diehard volleyball fan, be a volleyball fan, because it's such a fun environment, and they're having a great season, especially when they were picked not to have one. A gritty team, young team, exciting team. They should be here for a while, hopefully. Fungi showing out, Bedell showing out. It's been successful so far, and they still have a good amount of the season to go, so it's going to be fun to watch them. A little bit more on an unfortunate note, getting into soccer now. We've been talking about the last 3 weeks. It's just been it's been not great for them so far. They dropped both of their home conference games over the weekend, which is kind of what me and Izzy were hoping they would try to get back on track with. Their winless streak now sits at 6 games, and they are 4-8-1 on the season. really kind of in jeopardy of losing that John Headland's win. What am I trying to say? Over 500 streak. They are one of 3 teams without a conference in the American without a win, without a conference win. So it's been a little rough. That game on Thursday, Hicks Bishop came back over Alina Arneth, who's been playing really well this season. So Hicks Bishop got she started both games actually. She got saw her first action since August 28th. The team scored in less than a minute against Charlotte, so they got that goal kind of started, which has been a problem. They've been shooting a lot of shots, but they haven't been falling. They got a goal in the first minute, which was great, but then fell 3-2. So at this point, you kind of stop saying, oh, the goals just need to fall and it'll start. It's almost just bad luck at this point.
And that's exactly what Coach John Headland told me. I got to sit down with him last Wednesday, heading into this unfortunate home opener where they were probably a lot more optimistic about these games beforehand.
Oh,
and, it's unfortunate to think about those conversations about how optimistic they were, and then see the bad luck that they ran into. And luck was the exact word he said. He goes, I asked him, "Hey, Coach, what's it gonna take to turn this thing around?" And he said, "Honestly, we just got to score goals." I sit back in my chair and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And he goes, and I want to expand on that. We're getting a lot of shots off the crossbar. We are close. It's just a matter of getting them in the net. And he goes, I don't really know what to say, because honestly, when they're kicking the ball that close, obviously if we're going too wide or too up or whatnot, or straight into the goalie, that's a technical issue. But soccer is so difficult because there's really only one thing you need to do, and if you can't do that, you're not going to win.
Exactly.
And he clarified. He said it really just does take luck. This is one of the most talented teams we've ever had. He loves his captain's unit with Mia Bernard, Abby Major, and Rachel Roebuck. He said it's one of the best captain's units they've ever had, and it's kind of hard when you've got good leadership, you've got the talent. It's just not coming through. I mean, like you said, in the Charlotte game, they scored in the first minute, and then they gave up a penalty kick in the 73rd minute, and it's just tough, right? You set the table, and then someone eats off your plate. It's just tough.
I like that phrase.
They said they were going to change up the offensive attacking system to try to negate the luck in terms of goals. They said they were going to move into a 3-4-3 system with some 3-4s. They said his exact words were, feel like if we can score 2-3 goals, we're going to win. And that is an extremely unfortunate quote, because then they finally scored 2 goals and then fell 3-2. Yeah. So they really are. They're trying to do different things. Leadership's not the problem. The culture over there is fantastic. On tomorrow, sorry, I told you before this, I keep thinking it's Thursday, and today is Wednesday. We've got a feature story on the cover of NC Daily coming out about one of their captains, Mia Bernard, and that's kind of why I was over there at the facility talking to everyone, so make sure you go read that. Shameless promo.
No, promote yourself as much as you want.
So I guess to answer the question on why things are looking bleak is they don't know.
Yeah,
they've got all the right pieces, and they're
just
making adjustments. They just don't know.
It's just a matter of fate, kind of, at this point. Sometimes fate's just on your side, and that's just the way sports goes sometimes, and that's definitely been the case for the soccer team. They have a fantastic coach, a UNT legend in a coach. Like you said, they have great leadership. They have great players. They have experience. Mia Bernard got the scoring started against Charlotte in the early first minute. It's just, sometimes it just doesn't go your way.
And Mia's been having a great year.
Yes,
she's leading in 4 different categories for the team. Mm-hmm. When you've got a stud in Rachel Roebuck on that squad that's been there quite some time. She's actually coined as the enforcer.
The enforcer, yeah.
On the team.
She was a senior last year, so I think she's a graduate student this year. But yeah, she had a great season last year, earned first team American Conference honors. Yeah, she's a defenseman at heart, listed on the roster, but she can play quite literally anywhere. She's super talented, from what I've heard. Great leader, plays anywhere. She led the team in goals last year as a defender, which is just utterly insane. She is the enforcer back there in that defensive line. On a defensive line that is stacked. You have Abby Major back there. You have You have Ella Bushko. You have Abby Major back there as a senior. You have Ella Bushko also. She's been injured, but if you get her back, that defensive line is absolutely stacked. And then pair them with Alina Arneth has been showing out early this season, and Hicks Bishop just got her first action. That defensive line, like I think you were just saying, Headland was talking about, if they can score 2 goals, that defensive line is going to hold.
And I think that Mia Bernard also plays a huge role in that defense in maybe a more unconventional way. Headland runs a scheme to where they have a true offensive midfielder that serves as kind of like a point guard in basketball. And funny enough, Mia Bernard did play point guard in basketball and then gave up basketball for soccer because she said she didn't fit the build of a basketball player and thought that she had better chances at soccer because she's not a very tall girl, but a wonderful person. And even as a point guard, she still adds a lot to their defense. Abby Major touched on it a little bit with me. She said she just gives us everything top to bottom, offensively, defensively when she can, and also culture-wise. The three of them in that captain's unit covers every basis. When I said Rachel Roebuck was the enforcer, I meant from a physical standpoint, but also from a leadership standpoint. Apparently, she's the one that's going to get in your ear and hold you accountable verbally. They coined Mia as more of the cuddler, which I thought was a really funny.
As Mia as a cuddler?
Yeah, she's the cuddler. If anyone ever sees Mia Bernard, she has a smile up to here, and she's just wonderful to talk to. And she's just really in with her teammates. She understands how everyone ticks, as a point guard should. Mm-hmm. And then Abby is kind of like a good mix in between them. And I think everyone just kind of wants to see the soccer team turn it around because of all these great characters that we're bringing up in terms of all these girls get along great. Getting to talk to a newbie, Peyton Annis. Mm-hmm. She came here because her mom loved playing for Headland and the culture that he creates. This is stretching over decades, a wonderful program to play in, which not a lot of college athletes can say, frankly. It's really tough to be a college athlete. And it's just kind of been unfortunate to see the start that the soccer team's been on. They can still technically have a winning season, but they've got to make some big money moves and soon.
Big money moves indeed. They have a tough schedule coming up, to say the least. They play Temple, kind of get into that at the end, but then they play Memphis, who is ranked number 11 currently, I believe. So yeah, if they need to turn it around, it's gonna have to start soon. Yeah, unfortunate for the team, but like we said, sometimes that's just the way sports goes. If you still can, go check out a soccer game. Great players still, of course, very entertaining to watch. Claire Niedermeyer is a great offensive player. You have all the captains like we were just talking about. So definitely go check those out if we can. All right, getting into this next segment, I'm excited about this one. We have men's and women's basketball schedules were released. This isn't necessarily a season preview of sorts, but just kind of noteworthy games that are on those schedules. All right, we start with the men's basketball schedule. This at first look, this non-conference looks very tough. I guess we'll start off on that point. The non-conference looks very tough. They have back-to-back games against Loyola Chicago, and then Oregon State, and then St. Mary's. St. Mary's was in the tournament, and I think they beat Gonzaga last year. So compared to last year, where I think the toughest opponent men's basketball played was Oregon, I think, out of conference. I mean, you have those three back-to-back. That's kind of crazy.
Well, you also have a new head coach navigating all of this. Yeah. So they basically said, hey, we filled your plate. Make sure you eat all of it, right? I love how I'm using all these plate references.
I know. Did you eat lunch?
I did not, and that's probably why I'm bringing it up. They also face TCU in December, that's going to be a fun one. First time since 2004. And I think for the obvious reason of TCU is a great basketball program. That's going to be fun. But also from a geographical standpoint, both of these fans can travel.
Yeah.
Which is something that is super important for any sport from North Texas right now. I know we already kind of touched on it in the football segment of attendance and whatnot. But that's super important, arguably the most in basketball because of the enclosed arena. Mm-hmm. The energy that you have is going to reach the players.
Oh, yeah.
In football, you're going to maybe hear the speakers a little bit more, and you've got players spread out. No. If I'm sitting from here to you, the players can hear the conversation that we're having. And being able to have two good fan bases, not really have any excuses to not be there, is going to make for a really fun game, and that would be one to watch on my schedule for sure.
Yeah. That game is on December 7th. So kind of at that point, kind of in the thick of the season, you're about a month in at that point. So hopefully the fans will start coming out. Kind of to a point about the fans, we'll transition kind of talking about basketball for it. It is kind of tough going back to the point of being in a mid-major and their transfer portal and all that. This entire men's basketball team is basically new. The entire roster is new, and I'm pretty sure the entire coaching staff is new, which is just absolutely nuts. I mean, you lost Ross Hodge, who's a great coach, went to West Virginia, which is much deserved. You had a bunch of seniors on the team last year graduate, and then Brennan Laurent, who's kind of your best non-senior. He followed Ross Hodge to Virginia Tech. You bring in Daniil Robinson from Cleveland State, who's great at Cleveland State. He had led him to 3+ 20-win seasons. But just the roster and everything, being all new and the coaching staff being all new, it does get kind of hard at a point for the fans to really invest year after year into like, oh, okay, it's just new people. Because you get to the point where it's like, okay, if, once we have success, they're gone again.
And I'm happy you clarified for the viewers right now that this is a schedule preview and not a preview of the team, because we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know
literally.
anything. Like, we can't sit up here and tell you, oh, these are the players you need to look out for. This is where we think they're going to be good. This is what this coach brings to the table. We don't know. We don't have any information. There's a really exciting point to that.
Yeah.
And there's a really scary point to that, because North Texas has really had a really good basketball program historically, NIT semifinalist last year. And obviously fans want to make the jump to be able to make the tournament, and that's going to take a really good regular season. They have the season to build a resume, which is great. How great is it in a season where we don't know anything about the capabilities of this team? I don't know yet. And I'm glad that you brought up that this is not a preview of the season. But I think there's some good and bad things to this schedule being really tough for this new squad.
Oh, yeah, it'll definitely test them. A lot of these players come from Cleveland State. They follow Coach Robinson, or they come from a junior college or a non-Power 4 or mid-major school. So a lot of not experience at the higher level. So a lot of them this is gonna be their first time kind of playing these tough teams. You have playing those Loyola Chicago's, Oregon State, St. Mary's, which is fun at first. They're like, oh yeah, we get to play all these teams, which I'm sure they're thinking. But it'll also condition them, especially you have all these tough games to start off, and then you get into conference play. It's just gonna prepare them even more because once you play St. Mary's, the rest of that schedule after that is probably easier.
You know what's not going to be fun, though? I said TCU would probably be a game I would circle on my schedule in terms of non-conference. Obviously, St. Mary's, I mean, duh, you're going to circle that. I was just trying to pick maybe a more game that was going underneath that. But the conference game I would circle that is not going to be fun for North Texas is this Memphis game on New Year's Eve.
Dude.
And it's away. And you get to open your conference play playing the defending champions. Good luck.
Not fun at all. I saw that. I was like, oh, man, they're really trying to screw us over this year.
Yeah.
That's just I mean, it doesn't get harder than that, just open conference play. Yeah, you're away on New Year's Eve, away from your family. You're with your team, but on New Year's Eve, you kind of want to be with your family. You're playing Memphis. They're, always good in basketball. Won the conference last year.
They're tough.
They are tough.
They play rough. Obviously, they're a fun team to watch on TV, but not if I'm a North Texas fan. I do not want to play Memphis. And there's other teams that are more talented than Memphis. There are more teams that have guys that could probably eat Memphis players for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But Memphis will outplay anyone out on the court, and I would say that about any team that they would face in between the lines. Memphis is a gritty team, capital Gritty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Glad I spelled that right, because that would have been embarrassing.
They can beat anyone. I know they've been picks in my March Madness brackets in the past. That was before I got into college, so I didn't quite realize that. I was like, oh, they're just Memphis. But I was like, oh no, they're in a mid-major American, and the fact they're competing at such a high level, consistently year in, year out, And then going back to the point, this North Texas team is new. Don't know much about them. A lot of them hail from smaller colleges, so that is a test. That is a huge test, especially after that non-conference. But it's just like we were saying, the team is young and new. Coaches are all new, but just kind of generalizing to the point of the schedule, I think that non-conference will really set them up in going into conference play.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is if you're wanting to make the jump from NIT to NCAA, which I know that the Mean Green fan base really wants to, because North Texas kind of been in that NIT mix, which is great and nothing to shy away from in terms of wanting to play postseason ball, right? However, obviously you want to make the jump to the big dance, and this is a schedule to where you could, if you succeed. And oh my gosh, I keep hitting the mic. I'm so sorry. If you succeed, and yeah, what a time to be alive if I'm Daniel Robinson.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be fun. The North. I mean, it's been consistently great since. Before COVID, you had Grant McCassin for about I think like 6 years. The team was always great then. Ross Hodge had a fantastic short stint here, so the team's always good. I think it's Daniel Robinson.
Yeah, I hope I pronounced his name right. Sorry, Coach Robinson.
It's been
we
so
don't even
long
know how to pronounce his name.
Exactly. But yes, Coach Daniel Robinson has great success. Of course, 3 20-plus win seasons in a row, Cleveland State. Jared Mosley always makes great coaching hires, so I'm sure this team, they're not going to be bad. They're going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun, but it will be interesting just to see kind of how it goes. And that's the men's basketball schedule. Going into women's, kind of the same type of scenario as just is with UNT sports. I mean, football Brown 68 nutrients. That's just how it goes, unfortunately, here at the old UNT. But lost a lot of players last year. They lost UNT to sports legend, Tamisha Lampkin. She got first-team All-American again last year, averaged a double-double, just a local Denton legend, local school legend. She graduated. They lost Desiree Wooten. She transferred to Colorado. She was a second-team All-American and a first-team Defensive American last year, so she was a great contributor to the team. Lost Kyla Deck. She transferred to SMU, which really sucks. And then we also lost, I think it was Ariana Hardaway. She transferred to UTSA. What the heck, man? We got all of our good players are transferring to our rivals.
I think the fans want to hear the whole podcast about the transfer portal and the NIL impacting North Texas.
We're definitely going to make an episode on that.
This is stretching across every single sport that is listed on here. And it stretches into spring sports, which we're not even talking about.
Oh, man.
And that's a whole other bag of worms. Is that what it's called? Can of worms, yeah. So... yeah, I would pencil that in for a special edition episode.
But they still bring back head coach Jason Burton. He hasn't left, which is great. He's another great basketball coach. Him and Ross Hodge are just a dynamic duo these last couple of years. But they bring him back. Bring in also very much the same as the men's team. They bring in a lot of junior college transfers. Bring back a couple players from last year, but overall, just a lot of new players. So again, not much known about this team. We'll kind of, as the season really gets, as we really get into the season, we'll kind of start to know more, see how the players flesh out. But some games on their schedule, noteworthy. They take on SMU November 22nd. So they'll face Kyla Deck. She was a great three-point shooter for the team last year. I think had the highest three-point shooting percentage on the team. Great player. Unfortunately, she had to transfer to SMU, but I get it.
She had to.
Yeah, I guess she didn't have to. Unfortunately, she did transfer. Did I say have to? Unfortunately, she did transfer to SMU. Yeah, they play her on November 22nd, so that'll be entertaining. They face off against Texas Tech on November 27th, and then Oklahoma State in the Super Pit. That'll be a fun game to go watch on December 3rd. And then Illinois on December 14th. So, again, another really kind of tough-looking non-conference schedule for this women's team as well. And probably by design, probably the same as the men. I'm sure that went into it. You know, you want to get this new team starting off strong, playing these high-level opponents before you get into conference play when stuff really gets going.
Yeah, there's a lot of parity between this men's and women's squad. Women's squad also NIT appearance, eliminated in the third round, and both teams are succeeding in the NIT tournament, and they're kind of trying to make that jump to the NCAA. And I think this is another move by Jared Mosley and the powers that be in terms of making a schedule that is going to challenge this team and also maybe something that these teams are prepared for. They just maybe haven't had a resume to where they could get one of those bursts into the big show in March. And I think this is the schedule to do it. And I think that's why they made it this way. They had a record-setting season last year. Granted, they lost a lot of players that played a huge role in that record-setting season. And that just goes back to how much we lack information on also the women's team, and we can't preview and tell you their chances against these teams because we don't know. There's a lot of new pieces. What we can tell you is the SMU game is going to be tough because we know their best player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of going off, just off of your point of we don't know much about it. All of these players for both the men's and women's, they hail from junior college teams where they've had great success. They led their teams. They got all junior college honors. So we know they succeed at that level, but you have no clue how it transfers, because it transfers for different people when they come up to the higher levels. You have no clue really how it's going to translate.
Well, yeah, and basketball is a huge physical, measurable sport, kind of like football, right? You know, when I think about softball, you've got every shape and size of athlete out there, and they can all succeed in different ways. Basketball and football, you kind of got to fit a certain bill, and you've got some of these players, not to discredit their talent or their ability, but when you're at these lower levels, you're going to face some of those players that don't fit those physical measurables, you know, for D1. And when you move up a level and you've got a girl at 6'4" and then a wingspan of 1,000,000 trying to block your shot, I mean, it hurts your chances of being good. And yeah, we've got a lot of girls that we've got to see if that's the case for them, or if it really doesn't matter and they just ball out.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of learning to do in the next few months.
Yes. A couple other notable games on that schedule. They take on Santa Clara at home here at the Super Pit on December 22nd. They lost to them last year. It's a new team, so I guess, you know, revenge isn't necessarily an option. But I'm sure that's probably, especially on Coach Burton's mind. So a game to look out for there. And then they begin conference play against Florida Atlantic on December 30th away again. So the day before New Year's Eve away. We really got shafted at the start of conference play this year. But, you know, head coach Jason Burton, great coach. We'll have these previews kind of in future episodes once the season starts for both teams. And as, you know, information becomes more available to us and the games kind of kick off. But those are the schedules. Those are some games to look out for, some exciting stuff going on, especially non-conference. Tune into those seasons. Our basketball teams are always really successful, always very entertaining. All right, that is the past week in UNT sports and just some coverage of that. We're moving into our quote of the week, which I got to say, I think this is my favorite so far. This one doesn't come from football this week. We've graduated. I'll give myself a clap for that. This comes from Dave Fleming. We haven't talked about his personality. Well, I guess we have, but he's a fun guy. Very, very, you know, a player's coach, as we've talked about. But this is him post-game against Charlotte after the team got swept. This is in Ruben's article. Go check that out if you haven't, his recap of the game. On losing to Charlotte, he says, "You want a turkey dinner on Thanksgiving and they bring out hamburgers. It's frustrating. You look forward to it, and I know the coaching staff knows what this team can do, and we didn't see it tonight, so it was definitely hamburgers."
Well,
Bro.
I know what he did not have for his post-game meal, and that was hamburgers.
That was absolutely hilarious. And it's more like brought up by the fact that we know Fleming is such a technical guy, even more so technical than like Morris at times, because Morris will say like all these football terms and jargon, and you have to kind of keep up with it. Fleming is on a whole other level. Like he'll say like what pins, like you can't
pin
get
hitters.
Pin hit. Yes, I'm sorry, Fleming. You can't get a quote out of him without him like saying a bunch of volleyball lingo, which is great. But the fact that, like, in this quote, he just goes, like, you want a turkey dinner on Thanksgiving and they give you hamburgers. Like, talking about the team gave him hamburgers instead of a turkey. Bro, this is absolutely hilarious.
This guy's bought in. And on a more serious note, he believes that Denton is a place to get some of these top volleyball recruits because he sees a lot of potential in getting girls to stay home. There's a bunch of high-level recruits in the DFW area, and he thinks that with the investment that North Texas is doing in a lot of the athletic programs, I guess I should say. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Especially with the volleyball facility, the new volleyball facility just opening up. There's investment on that end, and he thinks with that, he's kind of one of those guys that wants to turn this program around. He has proven success at the D2 level. He thinks this is a program that can contend with all these big-time names, and this quote, it speaks to how much he believes in this Mean Green program, which I think is awesome. I also think that of all things that he could compare it to, this is just gold. I want to frame this, put it on a pillow.
That was actually hilarious the first time I read that. I was like, bro, what is he talking about?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I just have nothing but good things to say about Fleming. He is bought in, is all I want to say, to what this program can do. I think he's proven it through the turnaround that he's been able to do for this program. And hopefully with their win following that game the next few days, I hope he got some turkey dinner.
He got yellow carded in that game against Charlotte, arguing a call, which was, again, speaks to your point about just how about Indy is. I'm not trying to shade, but the previous coach, I don't want to get like shade or anything, but the previous coach, I didn't really see her give that much energy, especially on controversial call. Obviously, she argued it, but getting a yellow card is something I haven't even seen that in a volleyball game before. So the
I
fact
haven't
that
either.
happened, the fact I didn't even know that could happen. So the fact that happened, yes, he's extremely bought in, and the man wants his turkey dinner. I really hope the team if they win the conference tournament, I hope they give him a
Oh my gosh,
platter
that
of
would be
turkey dinner.
hilarious.
That would be absolutely hilarious.
Shout out to the UNT creative department. Please make that happen or make it a graphic
Football
or
has
something.
the Denton Desert. Make the turkey. Make Fleming a turkey thing. You heard it here first. Please market the volleyball team as turkey on the thing on Thanksgiving.
They need to do something with a turkey trot or something along the. Oh, I've got so many ideas. Okay,
we need a
continue.
pitch. Okay, we'll continue. That's our quote of the week. And so now we are on to our what's next. You're probably wondering what's next. And to that I say not much. Football's on a bye week, so nothing to talk about there. Softball competes today. I guess Wednesday today. By the time this episode comes out, it will already pass. They start their fall scrimmage against Trinity Valley Community College. We won't preview them for a while. It'll probably be in the spring, but just getting their feet about them to start the year. New head coach Cody White, a lot of new transfers in, so exciting stuff there.
One from Oklahoma.
Yeah, one
Exciting.
from Oklahoma. A couple from Oklahoma, because Coach Cody White hails from, I forget the college, but a college in Oklahoma. Brought a couple players with him.
Sorry, I meant from the University of Oklahoma.
Oh, you're right.
I definitely
yes.
should have clarified because he is from the state of Oklahoma, and that was my fault.
No, all good. All right, and then first kind of big docket game on the market is women's soccer. They travel to Temple on Thursday. Like we were kind of mentioning in the soccer segment, if there is any game for this team to lock it in and for fate to go away and for their fate to change and to start winning, it is this game right here. There is only one team worse than UNT in the American right now, and it is Temple. So they sit at 3-10. The only players they have ranked in the top 10 of any individual stat in the American is an assist. So they don't score a lot of goals. They don't save a lot of goals. They don't put up a lot of stats. They're 3-10. So this UNT team, probably the best matchup they're going to get at this point in the season going forward. So
yeah, and it's far away from home, so they're barely going to have anyone for their crowd for the Mean Green there. So being able to best a team and then going, hey, we did that on the road. We didn't need any home field advantage on our side. That's going to be a huge momentum change. I was going to say builder, but more of a changer for this team.
Yeah, exactly. And then, if they definitely important to get this one out too, because like we were saying, the next game they take on number 11 Memphis, and that is going to be hard. It's going to be a rough game. Memphis won conference last year, projected to win it again this year. They're number 11. To their point, Memphis is usually good in a few sports, usually nationally ranked, and women's soccer is one of them this year. So important time for the soccer program to start turning it around. They have their game on Thursday. Keep up with that once that game is over. Volleyball, they continue their play in Florida. They take on both the Florida schools and FAU on Thursday, and then they take on South Florida on Sunday. And then they return home on Wednesday. We're going to cover this now because the next episode won't get out in time. They return home on Wednesday and play against in-state rival UTSA. Florida Atlantic is pretty similar to Charlotte. They have a very high octane offense, very aggressive offense. They'll put the ball past you, but they're not as strong on defense. So kind of going back to that Charlotte game and learning from it, I think this team, even in a hostile away environment, I think they'll be able to probably prepare for it just a little bit better now that they know kind of what to look for.
Yeah, and I think that was a huge deal for this 2025 season. I know we already kind of touched on it in the volleyball segment, but this team is one that's gaining intelligence every single game that they play. They kind of had to do a learn as you go type thing because not only was Fleming new, but he had a whole new style of roster to where there was this ginormous hole, and he kind of had to put Band-Aids over it in a way to where people can't step on the hole and their foot falls through, right? It's got to be a sturdy foundation, and I think he's done that with they lost all their pin hitters and using other players to kind of cover that up. And I think they've, after their loss, figured out maybe how people can expose that, and they've been able to put more things over that hole. And I think they'll be much better prepared going into Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, those offensive players, Reagan Bedell, Janiyah Jackson, I think they'll definitely be able to step up. But kind of like as I was saying, this is an extremely hostile away environment. So the FAU is 7-1 at home so far this year. They're always usually play really good at home. So
Boca Raton is no joke.
No, those Florida schools, they have those fans come out. I remember the softball championship last year when UNT was taking on FAU. I mean, those fans get into it. Yes. So that offense, they'll definitely be able to step up. But if there's any test for them to kind of get used to the away environment, especially in conference, it's going to be this one. For FAU, some highlight players, they have sophomore Olivia Hart and junior Anna Hartman. They both lead. They're both been leading the team so far this year. They're the only players with 100+ kills, but they have a lot of them. Probably the two big offensive players you'll see FAU really use this game. Um, but yeah, that'll be a fun game. Well, we'll see what comes out of that. And then they move into their Sunday game against USF. UNT does. Last year, the game went to 5 sets, so very intense matchup last year. Will probably be the same again this year. A highlight player for USF, Maria Clara Andrade. She won the American Conference Player of the Year last year. She was fantastic last year. She came back for her senior season, didn't go anywhere. Going strong again this year, she ranks 6th in the American in kills so far. And then some other players, they have outside hitter Addie Bruce. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And then senior outside hitter Ariana Beckham. But this team is a little bit kind of less organized than FAU. They have those three players, those three girls have been really leading the team, but there hasn't been a huge concerted team effort for USF so far. They only have 3 players with over 100+ points, whereas UNT has about 4, I think. So they definitely rely on those people a lot more. So I think Fleming and the team will be able to game plan to contain Andrade, because you definitely can't stop her, but they'll be able to contain. Fungi's definitely gonna have to do her best job getting those blocks up, stopping those outside hitters that have been leading USF.
Well, yeah, and they allow a lot of opponent blocks, and Fungi's really been dominating people who don't struggle in that aspect. So, yeah, Laura Donna being dominant in this one for sure. And I don't want to say it's kind of riding on her shoulders, but if she's not in it in that game, then I would spell some trouble for North Texas, because South Florida isn't as organized as you said, but still, it's a tough opponent, and you don't want to mess with those Florida schools
No.
by any means.
Yes, again, just kind of with the experience, you have the senior Ariana Beckham and Andrade. They've been in these situations. They have that intensity, and sometimes it can catch the younger players off guards. But I think especially after this FAU game and just after this probably Florida series, I think the young UNT team will definitely kind of have their heads about them at this point. They won't get caught off guard as much, and they'll definitely kind of lock in. And then if Vic comes back, because we don't know, fortunately we don't have soon. If she comes back, that'll be all the more helpful for this team against FAU and USF. And then the game against UTSA happening next Wednesday, next week, happens here at home. It's kind of a long ways out. They are 8-5. UTSA is, but their record doesn't really reflect how good they are. They beat Charlotte 3-1, who Charlotte swept UNT, so they're very solid. They play good defense and a lot of good team ball. I was tired last night, so I didn't write a lot of notes on this one. But they play a lot of good team ball. It'll probably be a tough one going into that game for the Mean Green. But they're coming back home. Again, hopefully Vic will be back playing in that environment. And just an in-state rivalry with UTSA. That's always a good matchup across all sports. So should be entertaining for that one. And then swim and dive. We're kind of moving on. Volleyball. Swim and dive competes in their in the SMU invite on Friday. They just recently competed in the Sam Freeze invite and were very successful. They came in 2 out of 8 in the women's team rankings and 3 out of 8 overall. And mind you, this invite, the Sam Freeze invite, for all the 8 schools that went, they brought their men's and women's teams. UNT does not have a men's team, and they still finished 3 out of 8 overall in combined team rankings, which is absolutely fantastic. Sophomore Maria Mitova had 3 first-place finishes, one in the 200-yard medley, 200-yard freestyle, and the 500-yard freestyle. And then freshman Ava Zadigian, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that again, she had 3 first-place finishes as well, one in the 200 medley relay, and then 2 first-place finishes in the 100 and 200-yard backstroke. And like we said, like last episode, this diving team is great. And the swim team really stepping up. They kind of struggled a lot last year. But, they have a sophomore and freshman. A lot of young players did really great at that Sam Freeze invite.
All I want to add to what you just said is we need some phonetic instructions from this athletic department, because I'm seeing all these names and I'm like, I don't really know how to approach that name properly. So if anyone from the athletic department is watching, we need a phonetic guide on some of these athletes and coaches.
Especially on the tennis team. You saw me and Ruben on that tennis episode, man. That was right.
So many international
players. It is great. We love the international players. Like, I'm sorry. I know I'm butchering this name, and I'm so sorry. I can't pronounce it. Yeah, that SMU invite for swim and dive on Friday, they take on Oklahoma Christian. Again, they compete against them in the Sam Freeze. And then a couple more bigger schools like SMU, University of Incarnate Word as well. So we'll look out for them. Maybe do a small recap whenever that happens next episode, but we'll see. Cross country, competes in the Chili Pepper Invitational on Saturday. That's all I can really say about them. Not much media goes on with them.
Run fast, do good.
Exactly. Yes. Or I guess pace yourself in cross country.
Pace yourself,
right?
yeah. Run fast at the end. I don't know.
I don't know how it works.
I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend to be a cross country expert. I just feel like you got to run fast. I can tell you, I ran cross country in middle school, and they told me I bounced too much when I ran. I was going too high instead of going out.
I know there's so much technical stuff when it comes to running, but I don't really know
And cheek to cheek.
I don't even. Oh, like hands cheek.
Yeah, like cheek to cheek.
Interesting. I wonder if that applies for cross country, because you did cross country?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you don't want your fists to be
like balled up.
Yeah, because it wastes energy.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe I am a cross country expert.
I'm gonna have you back on whenever.
Yeah,
we recap this cross
throw me on the broadcast.
And then men's and women's golf, they both kick off tournaments to start this next week. We covered men's golf in the last episode. Go check that out if you haven't. They compete at the Trinity Forest Invitational in Dallas. Mitchell Meyer, Ryan Latif, both freshmen, have been leading the team early on. And then the women's golf, they compete at the Oklahoma Intercollegiate. They recently finished second place in their tournament, the Sam Golden Invitational, which they host biannually.
Biannually?
Twice every year is biannually, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I guess we need a dictionary. We need dictionary help.
We need a lot of stuff in here. I can't speak English, right?
I think it is biannually.
Yeah.
I hope no one clips this and is like, she's
I'm
dumb.
sorry. It's okay. Our 30 lower viewers, please don't clip that. Shout out Carson Kelly. Go check out his preview on the women's golf team if you haven't. Very successful team, especially at that Sam Golden Invitational. Just some stats. They shot 10 under par as a team, which is the second best line in program history. They're led by junior, I'm going to mispronounce this again, I'm so sorry, Bouquet Subsamboon and senior Mallory Lutweiler. They both had top 10 finishes in that Sam Golden Invitational. Both finished with career highs of 10 under par and 7 under par, respectively. 10 under par for Subsamboon and 7 under par for Lutweiler. And then they still have great golfers like Malison Chantapanya and Blake Keane. So they'll look to replicate that success in the upcoming tournament. Again, go check out Carson Kelly's article if you haven't. He can do a lot better job explaining it than I can right now. But yeah, that's next week in UNT sports. No football. So some of the smaller sports, but there's been some relative success. It's an exciting time for UNT sports right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I'm a fan, I'm buying a lot more shirts and hats. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Also, I'm gonna call out the marketing department again. If y'all have any of those leftover hats from the DFW sports game, football against South Alabama, I would love one, and I would ask for one for my co-host right here.
Please. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We'll cover that USF game whenever it comes up in the next episode. That's next week in UNT Sports, and then that is our episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Haylie, thank you for joining me this episode.
Yeah, I hope I can be on again. This was a blast. You do a
sure.
great job, and we're gonna increase the viewership for sure. This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you guys for watching. Those of you who have, I'm looking forward to the rest of this semester as football goes on, as basketball starts. It'll be fun. Thank you guys once again for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah.